All right. Welcome everyone to my umpteenth episode of the CFN HQ Hangout. So I've been switching back and forth to getting members of our community, and today I got a special friend of mine who some of you guys may know. But real quick, how I know this guy is that we have a long history together. We played college soccer together, and I know I probably told this story 100 times, but Rob was a walk-on at our college at East Stroudsburg University. And, we, as soon as he came on the team, we had like immediately clicked, especially when I saw this guy's work ethic and character. It was a guy that I know I wanted in my circle for that time. And we've been graduated from school for years. And, I reached out to Rob during this whole quarantine, and, we're going to learn a little bit about his history and stuff. And, I reached out to him because he's an excellent coach and he's very knowledgeable in the field and he has a ton of experience. So I brought him on today because every time we talk, I'm like, in the past, I was like, we should really record this stuff because this is all good stuff. And sometimes we talk about fitness and sometimes we don't talk about fitness. Sometimes we just talk about other stuff and we talk about coaching. So, I got Rob on here today. And Rob, what I want you to do for us is I want you to tell a story. You could bring it back to college. Let us know what you went to school for. Kind of give me a snapshot of your career up until now.
Yeah.
Give me that snapshot so people can get a feel who I'm talking to today.
Yeah, it's wild. I still look back at those ESU days, and it seems like it was like, just a couple years ago, and now it's, coming up on like 15 or something crazy like that. But yeah, I mean, in a long shot, I think, high school age is where I really started to become, I was a little fat redheaded kid, and then I got into high school, started wrestling. I was a high school wrestler and soccer player. Obviously, soccer was my main focus. And that's where I really started getting into training, really started, learning more about movement, learning. And I just saw, kind of just a change in my body, a change in my athleticism. And, I was fortunate enough to work with some good coaches back then. And, so that's where the hooks really sank in. And that really changed my life in high school, was becoming an athlete and learning how to do that stuff. I went to a school, I didn't have great grades. I went to a school in North Carolina for a year, was able to get my grades up. I played soccer down there. It was a Division III school, but I wanted to be closer to home. So East Stroudsburg was always a school that, I really liked. I liked the location, obviously the soccer program. So when I talked to the school there and the coaches, they said, look, you could come up, but, we're a pretty good team and you're going to have to walk on if you want to do this. So, at that point I said, I'm going to invest everything into walking onto this soccer team, and being a part of this team here. So I went to East Stroudsburg, and it took a while. Coach Cheska, who ended up becoming such a huge mentor in my life, and meeting guys like Matt. But, I had actually went a full year up there where I went through the normal process of trying out. And then they said, okay, you could work out with us, but you're not going to be on the team. I said, that's fine. That's cool. I'll just train. And then, eventually I finally worked my way onto the roster, and, probably trained more than I ever needed to as a Division II backup goalkeeper. But for me, I really realized at some point throughout that a few things were important. Is I loved the team, playing with guys like Matt and yourself, Matt, and guys like that. The competitiveness, I just felt like I was a part of something. And it was at that point where I knew I kind of wanted to get into coaching at some point. So I said, I wanted to play. I didn't like, really being a backup too much, but that wasn't, the big thing for me. I didn't let that get to me too much. Just being in that atmosphere and pushing myself, was enough. So at that point I was also studying, I was going to be a PE teacher. I was studying physical education, and then I kind of, so I was, getting a whole exercise science background, more on the teaching side of it. But then I started to morph away from that. I was getting really into training and the strength and conditioning at that point. So I said, let me do kind of they had a physical education route where you could kind of do some other things off of that. So my goal when I was there was just, to get as well-rounded in as many things. And I left undergraduate work. I wanted to open up my own facility. That was my thing. So I knew I needed a background in physical education and exercise science, but I also needed a background in, some of the sport management principles and business management and things like that. So long story short, I stayed up there, graduated undergraduate in physical education degree, stuck around up there for my graduate work, and I got a graduate degree in sport management. At that point, I did some things after that, internships, things of that nature. And I was, I worked with Matt. Actually, we did corporate fitness for a little bit together. But I was like most young guys or young people when they graduate school. I was lost. I didn't know. I had a lot of student loans to pay. I didn't know really what I wanted to do. So I did, what you do. And I called my college coach, Coach Sheska, and I told him, I said, look, I think I just want to coach. And he said, well, I could pay you about $5,000 if you come up here. And I said, sold. I'll make it work. I'll do whatever I need to do. So not only did Coach Sheska give me an opportunity to be a player on his team, he actually started my coaching career by giving me an opportunity to be on his staff. I was like 24 at the time, an assistant coach. I trained the goalkeepers. I did everything, but he just, gave me that. Well, luckily at that point too, they were searching for a fitness professor in Lifetime Fitness, which I was teaching fitness courses to the general student population there. And so, that came to fruition. And, so I was working there for a little while. Had a great experience. We can elaborate more on that. Ended up getting the opportunity to go to Rutgers University. They were in the Big East at the time, where I worked for Coach Riasso, another mentor of mine. Was there for 2 seasons, and then went to Stevens Institute of Technology as an assistant coach. Was there for a year. We played for a national title that year. I was there as an assistant, and then the Arcadia University job opened. Spent 9 seasons there, and then similar to where I was, I loved coaching. I knew it was what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something else. So I have 2 little kids. So about 2 years ago, I left Arcadia and I was an athletic director at a high school. I was there for about 18 months, Lansdale Catholic High School, great school, great place, great people. But I just found that it still wasn't really quenching my like what I wanted to do. So it was at that point I said, I'm going to start my own training company, which I have now, RCN Sport Source. I do a lot of work with Matt, with your group, obviously, and to make ends meet while I'm getting this company off the ground, I'm doing some, work in the private sector as a executive recruiter, that we always kid around, pays the bills for letting me follow my passion. But so a lot there. But I mean, that's really, where we're at today. And as I look back on it, because I look back on it a lot, and I kind of, I just shake my head. And if there's a few things I learned, a lot of it is just like, you'll be amazed, or I was amazed. I still am amazed with people you meet as you're going through that route, like what they remember about you. I can call somebody I haven't spoke to in 10 years. And in the back of my mind, sometimes I'm like, man, I'm glad I was never a jerk to that person, or I'm glad I have a good relationship with that person, because, those relationships helped me out so much. And so, I know that's what you try to do, Matt. And one of the reasons we're such good friends is, you try to always pay that forward and do those things. So.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I wanted to talk a little bit Arcadia, because whenever I had touched base with you, you seemed like you started somewhere, as far as, because you were the head men's soccer coach, but you have an extensive background in strength and conditioning. How did your approach to their strength and conditioning, because there was some time that you didn't have a strength coach there. Mm-hmm. Where were you at? Like, what were you doing from them at the beginning? And then where did it end up? Because you were doing some cool things with tracking that they do at the professional level, mm-hmm. that not a lot of teams were doing. And I know I used to talk to you about that, and I was like, damn, this guy's doing a lot. Like, this is a lot of monitoring. And I'm not saying, because you wanted to be the best. I'm going to do everything in my power to be the best. So tell me where that whole thing was, where you came in, what you were doing, and how that kind of came full circle, and what it changed into by the end.
Yeah, it's, one of the things I quickly found out, as a Division III coach was, and I was at I was at a Division I school. I was at East Stroudsburg. Before that, I was at some schools with some really good resources. Arcadia at the time, if you look at it now, it looks completely different. I mean, right now where they're at is amazing, and it's really cool to see. But, when I first started there, it was really like a small mom and pop type athletic department. And I said, when I got there, I said, wow, I had $2,500 total for an assistant coaching staff. We didn't have any, we had a weight room that was all, old rusted out weights and things of that nature. So, at that point, I started to learn very quickly, and I needed to, okay, number one, what are we going to need to do here just to, start to survive and run a good program? And then, about a year into that, it was, okay, let's switch the focus, and what are we going to start to do to really become a competitive program and get our players to where they need to be? And what I really always kind of thought about was making the experience as professional as possible for everyone involved. And that's really what I wanted to do. So from a strength and conditioning standpoint, when we didn't have a coach, I knew that we could give our team a significant edge if we are, they call it winning in the margins, but if we are doing these little things, 2 full body workouts in season a week, focused on preventative maintenance and general strengthening work, that's going to kind of stunt the breakdown that occurs during the college soccer season, and then from there, I mean, we literally, my first 3 or 4 years there, we were lifting car tires. I went out and bought, I didn't buy them. I went to the local car mechanic and asked him, can I have a bunch of tires? So I would get car tires. I'd cut them up, tape them, do all this crazy stuff, but we would just be able to press them. We would be able to throw them. We would be able to do whatever you want with them. It probably wasn't the most hygienic thing in the world looking back on that. We used to wrap T-shirts around them so the guys wouldn't have to, but that did a couple things. Number one, functionally, we started to get stronger. We started to just do basic lifts. But 2, it gave our guys something to be proud of, and something that, we're lifting car tires out here, and so, but it was always built. It wasn't just never doing it just to do it. It was like, what can we do to make us better? And then, from a monitoring standpoint, from a very early time, it was just like, the soccer season in in college soccer is not really, even at the high school level, it's just not really smart. You're playing 2 games a week at an extremely high intensity. Guys are breaking down. So we started doing a lot of monitoring, load monitoring. Eventually we worked up to buying, the First Beat system, where we had 30 guys with heart rate monitors on, and we were tracking everything. But really the basis was to learn what we were doing in training, okay, and making sure it would mimic the game, but also making sure we weren't breaking our guys down. Now, I will be the first to tell you, my first few years as a coach, I made all the mistakes that I beg coaches not to make now. We overtrained. We were, the old saying, fast to ripe, fast to rotten. I mean, we were the prototypical team, and I was guilty of that. Even with the strength and conditioning background, I was guilty of it. Really tough sessions, 2 sessions a day, hard. You'll be fine, short recoveries, things of that nature. As we started looking at that data and learning more and more and more and more, it became a lot more balanced. So fast forward, I was hired by one athletic director at Arcadia. It was an amazing woman, Shirley Little. Shirley retired. Brian Granada, who's there now, still a great friend of mine, came in, and I was a senior associate athletic director. So I worked closely with Brian to really craft this vision of what we wanted to see. And, that included staffing. So we were able to get a full-time strength and conditioning coach, Todd Barnes, who does a great job there. And, allocate resources more and more and more and more. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where it started, lifting tires and lifting, taking players' pulse rates, in between training exercises, and, having a team manager write it all down and going back in and, and doing that to, a full First Beat team system and a full-time strength and conditioning coach.
How is the buy-in from the players on that monitoring? I think you're a pretty powerful, persuasive coach, because the way you speak and the knowledge that you have. So I don't think you had any problem. Like, if I was one of your players, I'd be, all right, whatever this dude says, I'm going to do. But, some kids are knuckleheads. Like, how did they take on, because some of them come from a background where more was better, right? And it's hard for them to, dial it back. So, did you deal with any of that?
Yeah, we did a lot. And, and really it's like, so you have this first couple of years when, and I was a madman. I was crazy. I pushed the team extremely hard, and, that will get you results. Let me be clear with that, but it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And there's burnout factors, mental and physical burnout factors. So what happened is once we started to really grow and learn and interject more and more and more, what we found, and we took more off the plate of the athletes, is older players would say, like, we're not ready. You know, we were doing so, you know, we're not fit. So to answer your question, it's a great question. And I when I talk to coaches about implementing this stuff, you have to educate. You have to, in that, like, and in everything, you have to explain why. Because the players are going to want to know, why is preseason? Is it that coach doesn't care anymore? Is it that coach got lazy? Is it that what? And you have to explain. You have to know the science. You have to explain the science. If you don't know it, there's nothing wrong with that. Not every coach has a background in it.
Exactly.
You know, but bring somebody in that can explain it. You know, just whatever you need to do. But you're right. Like, and you know, you may not, because you'll have a team in the first month that will come out flying, and they trained 3 sessions a day as hard as they could for those 3 sessions a day for 2 weeks. So they got fit really quick, which happens. They'll come out and they'll beat the team that's not in early September. They'll knock you off. And if everybody will say right off the bat, we're not fit. Preseason was too easy, this and that. But it's not about September. It's about October when you're into your league games and you're doing that stuff. So you have to explain. That's a really good question to answer. That education, explaining it, get through it.
And that's why it's important for these coaches to continue to go out and get educated.
Huge.
You know? Because here's the thing. I don't think you've matured as a coach until you can look back at what you did and cringe.
Yeah. Oh my God. 100%.
Like the stuff I did. Listen, I had a JUCO team, Bucks County Community College. We went from like having 3 girls at practice to being a regional contender.
Absolutely.
Right? And like, I even look back at some of the stuff that I did with them, and you're right, working them really hard will get results really quick, right? But then I was really understanding by my last season that I'm like, ugh, damn, like I was crushing them. Plus, I didn't have a deep bench, and I really didn't. And even myself, like I was like didn't get it, because you know what? I was that athlete that liked to train, and so were you.
Yeah. Yep.
Train, right? So
Yep.
even though we know the science, sometimes our personal beliefs like override that sometimes. It really takes some maturity,
Yeah,
further education to kind of say, yeah, I got to take a step back. And I'm telling my athletes and clients here now, yo, we need to take a step back.
yes. And the big thing too, you know, that goes along with that is being younger coaches. And you see this with your younger coaches. And when I would hire, you know, I was 27 or 28 years old when I was a head coach, extremely fortunate. You know, I wouldn't have told you this then, but I could probably have used another couple years as an assistant. You couldn't tell me that at that point. I wanted to be a head coach and I knew it all. But I look back at it now and everything was about the win. And why did we need to win? Back then, I'll be very honest, I needed to win to show that I could do this job. And that's not what it's about. Like, you know, it sounds corny, but like winning needs to be a byproduct of what you're doing. It was when it really was. I don't want to say win at all costs. That's not right. But like the result was like it. The result was it. And it very over time. And, you know, like you could shortcut the result. And you can, you know, so that was a huge education for me as a coach. And, you know, and it sounds so cliche to say when you're, you know, on something like this, or when you're just, you know, out of the season, but it's really not about us. And, you know, once you start to like understand that, you know, like I just found I got so much more buy-in and so much more understanding, and it really helped.
Totally. You know, it's funny you said about, you know, you could use a couple more years as an assistant coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, like, I mean, you've had so much experience, and like I can speak from my personal experience. Like, as I went through my career as an athlete and as a professional, I grabbed a little bit from each person. Like, starting with like Sheska.
Yeah.
You know, I have some things I do now in my life that are a little bit like Sheska. Then I'd like to even go deeper in that. Like I had some club coaches like John Calcaterra, you know, who had a match fit. I had even Walt Leonow as a youngster, Stan Williston, which was one of my high school coaches. And although I didn't take specific like coaching knowledge for them, but as far as like overall philosophy and just the way they were, like, do you feel like you who were your like biggest like influence? I'm sure Sheska had to be one of them.
Huge.
You
Yeah,
know?
man. And I'll tell you something. This is something I don't talk about this too much, but he had, when you look at the success that guy had at East Job, I mean, it is phenomenal. I mean, the amount, I think in all his years, he may have had one losing season, maybe only twice in that entire time not making the playoffs.
Listen, let's pause there for 1 second, because I'm going to say something very honest about Sheska. Sheska was one of the best coaches I ever played for, and not because of his soccer knowledge.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna have a comment on his soccer knowledge, but as a communicator and as a coach, he did something so well. First of all, look at the team he was able to recruit.
Mhm.
Second of all, the way he spoke and how intelligent and his mental fortitude, he was just tough as nails. Like, you
Yeah.
look at this guy, we'd be out all day at preseason. Now, you as a coach know what it's like to be out all day at preseason. It sucks. It's hot, right? You're
Right.
tired. This dude used to go run miles in the morning and then come hop around practice. Like, so you look at something like that, you're like, damn, like
Yeah.
this guy was a beast. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And then you may have went somewhere, so I'll let you continue. You may have went somewhere where like, that guy was a clinician.
Yes.
He
And
knew
that's,
soccer, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
I mean, that's really what it, like at Stroudsburg, it was like, I remember being a young assistant, and like, I look back at it now, it's like, I didn't like, it's like, man, I should have just shut up but I would like talk to coach, oh, coach, we need to do this, we need to do that. And he would always say like, Rob, I think we're good here, just in a real, and I like, with the respect I had for him, at that point, I just kept my mouth shut and did but you're right. Like, it wasn't like we weren't in team meetings or we weren't in classroom sessions. But and I, as a young coach, couldn't understand it. I thought we needed so much more structure. I was like, what are we doing? We need more structure. Now I look back at it, and I probably, like, I'm a very structured person, but like, there was a way, like, he didn't need to do that because he didn't need to do that. Like, so he didn't do it, and then I talked to people that played for him 15 years before that, and he needed to do that, so, but yeah, like, communication, building a team, letting the players, like, team ownership, team accountability, team chemistry, like, he just put the right people on the bus. Like, that was the big thing. Like, I never understood why it took me so long to walk onto that team until I walked onto it.
Yeah.
They just don't let anybody onto that team. Like you're either recruited really hard after a long process and of like, getting to know the guys, or, but to be a walk-on, it was almost just like you had to show like what you were about. And then I got it. And I said, wow, so that's really what I got from him, and then in terms of, Coach Riasso, I mean, you're talking about a guy there who's won over, 300, at this point now, probably 400 some games. He was, so I went from like kind of like player led, I don't want to say led because coach was a leader, but like more player based to like structure to like X's and O's. And I was behind a little bit there.
He went to Pfeiffer and did it again.
Yeah, he just won national championship there. Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. So you're like, what an intelligent individual.
Yeah.
Go and do that at another program that didn't have the history it did since he's been there.
Absolutely. And yeah, so I mean, and I was behind, from a soccer standpoint, at this point I was like 25. Like, I wasn't, and even like when I went to Stevens now I'm the full-time assistant now, working for Tim O'Donoghue, who's the Navy head coach right now. I was like the guy now. I was the second in command. And, so what I found is like I was always behind in certain areas. Okay. But you have to make up for it. And what I found now that I'm getting, every year is everybody's always going to be behind in certain areas, but I think the thing that makes you have to learn, like you have to like, even this job, I mean, I'm an executive recruiter now. This is totally outside of my wheelhouse. Again, I'm doing this as I start my own business, having a young family kind of, but I'm recruiting in all different industries that I really knew nothing about. So you have two choices. You could try to BS your way through it, which you'll get found out. Or, I mean, my first, few months on the job, I was coming home and reading job descriptions and looking at what people do and helping them advance their careers and doing this and doing that. And that's what I had to do at all those stops. But you have to do that. And you can't, I mean, and I know, Matt, we talk about this all the time. Like, I'm a dork when it comes to learning stuff. And it's, again, one of these cliche things about like, the more you learn, the more like you don't have it figured out. I mean, I'm like 15 years into coaching, and I'm still reading articles about periodization, saying like, how can I do this a little bit better? How can I do it? Like, different types. I'm a big runner, so I'm my own guinea pig a lot of times with, tempo workouts and interval workouts. And, I just got into a conversation the other day about, the, hill workouts. Okay. Well, hill is a terrain. It's not necessarily a workout. You know what I mean? Your heart, and learning about the heart. And so I could go on and on, but you have to learn, and you have to get better, and you have to you have to, the second you think you got it figured out, I mean, it's dangerous.
Oh, definitely. Especially working. I mean, we both work with some pretty young athletes, and I think part of getting through to them is, number one, talking to them. Number two, and probably the most important, is gaining their trust.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think that's part of the reason why you've been so successful, is because you do a really good job of educating on the why and then delivering the product.
Yep.
And I think that's so important. And I think a lot of coaches, when they start out, don't get that. I didn't really get that. I studied a lot and I knew a lot, but it's not until now that even my basic instruction for one of our group sessions has so much more body and why in it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's not all just skills and drills.
Yeah. No, and really to that end too, I mean, a big thing, especially now, I mean, I got one of my sons is going to be 4 and the other one's going to be 2 this year. It's just like, now, especially with the young kids I work with, high school age and younger, is, I look at these kids, I'm like, man, I want them to go home, like, and talk about like what they learned and the experience they had. I know when my kids are really young, but I still know what it's like, that feeling as a parent when they come home after a bad day. So listen, you got to be real as a coach sometime. I mean, not every day, you got to push it, but it's that balance. But the thing is, and my college players always told me this, they said, like, look, on the field, there was times where we like couldn't stand you. But every single time we saw you off of the field, outside of the lines, like, we loved you. You know what I mean? And I'm like, because I have to be 2 different people, and not in totality. I don't mean that, like, I just in like, all right, we're in between the lines. We got work to do. Like, it's, we're going, I still care about your health. I still care about your well-being. I still care about your mental state and making sure, but like, we're going to push you. Like, I'm going to make you uncomfortable. I don't want to make you uncomfortable outside the field or off the field. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always going to push you because I care about you, but like, there needs to be that trust. You know what I mean? It can't be. And I think that's where early on, I wasn't always great at that, but more and more and more, it's just like the players, the people you work with got to know that, like, look, like, your job as a coach, but you care about them and you want to see them, help them get to point A to point B. That's even like, people are like, how the hell did you get into executive recruiting?
There's carryover.
Oh, and that's what I tell people all the time. It's like, I'm talking to people about getting them from one point in their career to the next, and, resume skills and all that. And, yeah, for sure, though. That's a really good point about that trust.
Yeah. What are you doing now? So what type of training are you focused on now? Like, so for your business that you have, what are you doing right now? Like, what are you focusing on?
Yeah. So, and I appreciate the question. So in my own company, here's what I started. Okay. It's called RCN Sport Source. There's really 3 areas. Number one is sport specific training, so your speed, agility, quickness, work. I shy away from calling it strength and conditioning because we don't do too much pure strength work. We do a lot of, prehab, mobility, body weight stuff, but we don't have a facility. Our athletes really are never under any type of weight other than, their body weight. So, but it's about movement, athletic movement. How can we get our athletes moving better? And this is for all sports. So that's the one area. The next area is the soccer piece. So I call club soccer solutions or soccer solutions, anything a club or a team would need, from me coming out and training their team to, running a camp or clinic, or even helping, coaches or things of that nature. That's the second piece. And then the third piece is more of like programs. I do consulting programs and lectures and things like that for clubs. And that's really the thing that I want to grow more, is going into this youth sports market and giving these coaches some really basic knowledge to help them, really improve, improve the areas that they're working on with their kids. Because I see so many, sorry about that, my screen, I had a phone call come in. I see so many mistakes, not because the coaches aren't good coaches, or not because they don't care, it's just they don't know. So those are the three areas. We have, your athletic performance training, soccer specific training, and then that kind of, and that last area is everything from, I have a whole warm-up program where my thing is now is going into these clubs and teaching the coaching staff the importance of the proper warm-up, the importance of how you could bring these movement principles into the warm-up, kill two birds with one stone, kill a lot more birds than two with one stone, practice design, periodization for your season, all that stuff. So those are the three areas.
Yeah, what I think is really cool, because I've seen a couple of your sessions, and I spoke to some coaches that where you've had their teams, for our softball program. And what I really, really like, because although it's way different than what we do a little bit of that, but you focus on it way more. I believe what we have in common, and I think it's important with young athletes, is we just have to make them better movers. And here's the thing. I'm almost appalled by what's happened to our youth as far as coming to a session and they can't, because of either they're over tight, they're not mobile enough, or not strong, they can't do a lunge.
Yep.
They can't do a body weight squat, and you ask them to do a push-up, that's a lost art. And I think our positions are so important because we look back at what's happening. Like, we have kids now. What do the playgrounds look like now? They've taken the monkey bars away. There's barely any playgrounds with monkey bars.
Yeah.
It's a different generation.
Yeah.
You have to be so aware and so hyper-focused on movement mechanics.
Yep.
Because they just don't play naturally enough.
Yeah.
And you probably have people come in that you're like, wow, they can't get even to a 90-degree squat. They can't get low. You do a lot of stuff with like working low in that position. I have people show me an athletic position. I'm just like, and they're playing sports.
Yeah. And
they can't get into an athletic position.
It's so true. And I don't want to be the guy that kind of rails against it or says, but it's like physical education. I mean, just think of those words, physical education. I mean, it's just like, go back, prior to dodgeball and all that. And it's like educating you how to move. I mean, in the primary years, like you're learning how to skip, you're learning how to run, you're learning how to jump, you're learning how to walk on a balance beam, pull up your body weight, do it. Like I remember, and look, I'm a tall, lanky guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not great at doing pull-ups and stuff like that, but as a kid, you jumped on, go to the park, jump on the monkey bars, and even like things, Matt, I had one of my, what's that?
Skipping was fantastic. That when I do a warm-up and we go over different skips, it's crazy how many people can't skip.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hilarious. It's actually not hilarious at all. Yeah. But it's crazy. Like you look at a kid trying to skip, and it's just like, you're a young kid. Like that should be a basic tenet of it. But so what happens is but they'll go in, they don't know how to do those basic movement things, but they know a 4-3-3 formation in soccer, or they could tell you passing and moving stuff in basketball. They're overtrained in the tactical area of specialized sports, but it's like the chassis, the underpinnings of it can't support that, and it breaks down eventually. And that was a big thing. 18 months of working as a high school athletic director, I'm just like, wow, like it's they're fitting all these games in. They're just and Vern Gambetta, who I follow a lot, one probably in my book on the Mount Rushmore of strength and conditioning and movement training. I just watched something with him a couple of days ago. They're over competed and under. One of the things that we do, I had a group. There was in a facility we had. This was in the fall. There was like a brick wall in the facility, and it was like the last training session. I actually regret not doing this previously. I have a bunch of tennis balls. I said, you're just going to play wall ball for your warm-up today. And they're like, half of these kids didn't know what wall ball was. But it's just, throw the ball, get out of the way, get to the wall. And if you look at everything you're doing, it's scooping up a tennis ball on the ground, stepping and throwing, being agile, getting out of the way of a stimulus, and all that stuff. But I mean, we used to play wall ball. Once we got into soccer, it was soccer wall ball. And then it was, and it was those things.
There was just, it's a good and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it increases the need for people like us.
Yes.
To come in and train these folks. But I mean, I worry about, like, I'm always having my kids don't exercise, but they play.
Yes.
They play hard. Like, they're coming in the gym and they're like jumping over boxes. They're crawling under stuff. They're doing sprints. And the other thing is, they go, like, as a strength coach, you end up doing weird stuff with your kids. And when I say weird, like, my kids never have shoes on. Because I'm like, I want you strong, because the way they make shoes now with these big soles, I'm like, be barefoot. If you're in my gym and you're on the turf, go barefoot the whole time. Go barefoot.
Yeah.
It's so important in your development, and I feel like we were barefoot more as children and as kids because there wasn't as much danger out there. Like, we should just take our shoes off, run around our friend's backyard, but kids are all guarded up right now, and it's like, and it's crazy what it does for their movement mechanics. I know I'm saying this as a strength coach dad, because even though I'm not working them out, I'm looking down the road in case they ever get involved in athletics, is I want them to move well.
You got to move well. And like, that is the number one thing. Is just like, I was a college coach, and I would have these guys, I would recruit guys that, when I recruited people, I would, look at how they move but I had a few kids come in that were just really good soccer players, didn't move great. But I'm like, man, you got through your entire career with horrible running form, and now you have some injuries because of that. But nobody ever corrected you because you were just a good soccer player. And like, that's the thing, is just like the movement is like, so that's really like, from the athletic performance piece, like, that's really like what fires me up about it. Like, I do some local clinics for some towns and stuff like that, but it's just that emphasis on movement, like, just how do you move? And like, so like agility ladders, like, that's a big one here, is I'm in all these facilities all the time. So I'm leaving, and, maybe a flag football team or something setting up next to me, and their kids are going through the ladders, and, footwork. But then I look at the hips, I look at the arms, like, and it's just like, you have to understand that though ladders, it's a tool. It's a tool. And, what we use it for is a tool for your running mechanics. And, you could do some other things in it, certainly. But, it's scary because, like you said, like, yes, there's a market for us. But there's a lot of people, and I'm not a coach that, craps on other coaches or anything like that. But I do see some of these guys, they come out, and like, I just want to ask them, like, and I always wish that people would ask me, like, why are you doing that? Just tell me why you're doing that. And well, it's, and if they can't tell you why they're doing that in a way that really makes sense, you know what I mean? Like, and that's always been a thing, is that it sounds overused, but that why, like.
Yeah, it is, man. And also the other alarming thing is, and sport coaches need guys like you to give them the why and the education. And you said it yourself, not because they're a bad coach, because they just don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Just don't know. And here's the danger of just not knowing. We have the minority of time with their athletes. We do. Mm-hmm. They have the majority. So what they're doing is they think they're taking something that looks so simple, what we're doing, but we're looking for specific things, and then applying it without knowing the why. And they're applying the wrong reps. And here's what happens. They're getting thousands of wrong reps.
Yes.
And we're working with them. We're getting hundreds of good reps. Who wins? The thousands of bad reps wins. And that's what your body remembers. So I see it all the time. I see stuff that I've done with the kids. Now the coaches are taking out in the warm-ups or in their practices, but applying it wrong.
Yep.
Then I'm like, like
it's almost like you don't even want to. It's almost like you're better off not even doing it. Yeah. Like just don't even use the ladders.
Yeah,
like
the ladder's the big one.
No, it's like I'm very adamant with the athletes I work with, is just like, and the coaches, is just like, you got to use, you're not going to use a screwdriver to tear down a wall. You know what I mean? Don't use a ladder for things that, stop worrying about like this concept of foot speed. Like, is foot speed important? Yes, foot speed's important. Foot turnover is important, but like, I, foot speed is like having like really super nice tires on a car that like can't even be driven properly. It's like such an afterthought. Like, get the engine proper, get all the other components proper. You could tell I'm not a car guy.
Yeah.
But, uh,
We get the analogy though.
yeah, like, and it's like, so yes, foot speed, foot turnover, especially in soccer. I mean, yeah, that's important. Like, you got to be able to adjust your feet and, cycle through and that stuff. But like, that can't be I rather, I'm looking at, hips again, arms,
Yeah.
angles, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think what you do is great. And because I'm not a speed specialist, like I have some education in it, but I certainly only apply, like I watch some of the best people do it and I learn why they're doing it and I apply some of it.
Yep.
Over the years for me, what seemed to be the biggest important thing for me? And this is like, people are like, you need to do more agility, Larry, you need more foot speed. I'm like, how about we learn how to decelerate?
Huge.
Like,
Huge.
that to me is if I had to pick one thing I'm a generalist. If I had one thing as a generalist to focus on, I'd probably work on deceleration.
Yep. And I tell you what, it is the most overlooked. I was guilty of it for a number of years. But it should be up in the beginning parts of everything you're doing. How are you slowing down? What plane of your body are you loading? Where is the body? And especially, I mean, with all athletes, because I have seen enough male athletes tear their ACL, but young female athletes. And I was just working with a softball team last night out on the field, and we were doing deceleration, and I told them, like, at first they're a younger team. I think they're 12 or 13, and we're kind of and I just stopped and said, girls, the rate of ACL injuries in females is through the roof. And part of the and then I started explaining to them why this is important. Well, after you explain that to them, they're a lot more tuned into what's going on. But the decel from, I mean, you look at the carryover of that, the forcing of getting your body lower. Well, when you change direction, that body needs to be lower. When you jump and land, that body's going to be lower. Shock absorption, all that stuff. Yeah, man, I'm with you. It's essential.
I'm glad. Sometimes I put these things out on these calls, and I'm like, I hope I'm right by saying this. I hope I'm right.
Yeah. No, but and you've seen it enough. I mean, and that's the thing is, like, I tell people all the time, like, I am not a sports scientist. Okay, when you talk about exercise, like pure exercise science, I know that's what your grad work and stuff work is in, is like that's like very, like, you're talking about science. And when you talk about science, it's collection of data, analyzation of data, coming up with a hypothesis on something. Like, I'm not a sports scientist per se. I'm a coach. I'm a movement coach. I'm a performance coach. So what I'm looking at is athletic performance. I'm looking at the game being played and saying, like, okay, what are the movements we need to coach? Going back to the sports science and pulling some stuff from it. But yeah, I mean, like, and that's what you do, Matt. Like, you have that background because you've done that work on the science side of it. But I mean, you do the same thing I do. You're a coach. Like, you see it. It's just like, like, yeah. I see some things, like, and I used to do them. It's just like, why are you doing that? Like, that never would take place on a sport field, like, or court or anything. Like, why is that in your program? And some people have told me, yeah, you're right. It doesn't take place on the program, but the carryover is X, Y, or Z. And I go, point taken. Cool.
Yeah.
I got it now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how important the why is. I always thought it's funny. I preach that to my coaches all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, when we're explaining the workout, you have to give them a why.
Yeah.
You have to give them a why. Even if you think they're listening, and you got to give them a why, because if you give them a why, they're going to attack it a little bit differently.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like today, for example, in our workout, we had some shoulder press work, and then our capacity work today was 400-meter repeats.
Right.
But in the CrossFit world, you know how weird that sounds, that we're just doing 400-meter repeats, because they want it to be sexier than that. They want to do wall balls and power cleans, and they want to do and handstand walks. And you know what I did today? I explain things about the energy system.
Yeah.
I explained that. Now, I know you guys would like to see this workout written as 4 2-minute intervals of max wall balls and max this, right? But here's the thing about running. Now, although running is a skill, any of you guys can do it. And I could push you a lot harder on running than I can on a power clean, right?
Yeah.
Because you're able to express more activity during the run because there's no skill limiting factor. I know you have to be able to be a good runner, but whether it's good or bad, I can make you go pretty hard on a run, right? So what I'm doing is I'm training an energy system. I'm not training an exercise, right?
Yes.
So then when I started describing how each interval should feel, there is like a light bulb went off. And all of a sudden, you know what they came to me and said afterwards? That was one of the hardest workouts we've ever done.
Oh, it's so funny. I'm actually going to show you because I had this is hilarious. Hopefully you can see it on my phone because I have a good friend of mine. He just got named the head coach at Ithaca University up in upstate New York. But the other night I just did I did 400-meter repeats, and I did 10 of them on the track. And if you could see it here, that was my heart rate monitor. So each one of those spikes are the, that's the interval, and then you're down, and it, if you count those out, that's 10 reps. But the reason I show you that, and the reason I bring that up is like, so I would take that graph and hold that to a team of soccer players and say, like, fitness is being able to do the same interval you did in the first 10 minutes of the game. Will your graph look like that in the 90th minute of the game? Will that peak be as high? More importantly, will that recovery be at the same point? So, like, I wasn't even looking at, when I came back and, I looked at the heart rate data, I was looking more at my recovery time to get back to the thing before. But to your point, and it's so funny you just said 400-meter repeats because I did that workout on Monday night and I'm still feeling it today. But yeah, like that's that explanation of like the why, and then like being able, and I think that's a big part of it too, is just like, and I made this mistake, there's been a couple of times throughout my coaching career where like I kind of got out of shape a little bit, or I wasn't doing you don't have to do the workout you're prescribing every day, but you have to have done it at some point. I know there's some college guys, I hear some of these college strength coaches speak, and they do the actual full workout before they give it to their kids that day, which props, man. Like,
that's crazy. I know. I heard about some coaches doing that too. I have one of Penn State's football players in here. He played under the strength coach was Craig Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
And Craig Fitzgerald was a maniac, and the guy in here was telling me, he's like, yeah, Coach Fitz used to do the workout we were about to do plus his own workout, and I'm like, how did he handle that? I'm always like, I try to, do it, but at the same time, I'm like, you got to know what that stimulus is to be able to explain. But like you said, it's just like, that's it. Because we get that sometimes even with the kids we work with. It's just like that's it. Like, whoa. That's it. If you make it, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's crazy. But Rob, how fast does time go?
Too fast, man. Too fast.
Our time is up today. We both have to get on with our busy lives. But listen, dude, I appreciate you being on the call with me today. All right.
And I appreciate you having me, Matty, as always, man.
I'm so thankful that this gets to go up on my YouTube and me and you have a recorded conversation. I may send this out to all the ESU dudes. Well, it's going to go up on Instagram and Facebook. So
awesome, man.
Hopefully, go give it a listen. All right, man.
Well, sure.
It was great talking to you, man. We'll be in touch soon. All right, brother?
Sounds good, Matty. Thanks so much, man.
All right. See you, man.
All right, we'll speak soon. Okay.